In the dying hours of the Horus heresy, as terror burned and hope collapsed, a single figure cut through the smoke and ruin like a falling star. Imagine the scene: the Vengeful Spirit hangs above the shattered Imperial Palace, a monstrous fortress ship radiating corruption. Inside it, the greatest traitor in human history waits, Horus, no longer just a Primarch, but a creature swollen with the full power of the Chaos Gods. And then, stepping through the darkness with bloodied wings and a sword still dripping with the lives of demons, comes Sanguinius. The Angel. Humanity's last light. The question that has haunted Warhammer fans for decades rises like a whisper in the void: could Sanguinius have actually defeated Horus? Could the Angel have changed the fate of the galaxy with a single strike? Today, we dive into one of the most legendary, what-if moments in all of Warhammer 40k, a moment where the entire future of mankind balanced on the edge of a broken blade. Before we explore the deeper lore, power levels, and alternate scenarios, we must understand why this confrontation is so important. Sanguinius wasn't just another Primarch, he was the heart of the Imperium, the Emperor's most beloved son, a warrior whose psychic foresight and angelic power made him more than a simple soldier. At the same time, Horus was at the peak of his corruption, transformed into a near demigod and armed with hatred strong enough to tear reality itself. When these two titans finally met aboard the Vengeful Spirit, it wasn't just a duel, it was destiny colliding with tragedy. This moment is the emotional core of the entire Horus heresy, the pivot on which the entire future of the Imperium turned. And today, we're going to break down the stakes, the possibilities, and the heartbreaking truth behind what really happened, and what might have been. Before we can judge whether Sanguinius had any real chance of defeating Horus, we must look at the state of the Angel in the final moments before their fateful duel. Sanguinius arrived at the Vengeful Spirit after fighting continuously for hours during the Siege of Terra. He wasn't just tired, he was utterly exhausted. His wings were torn, his armor cracked, and his body dripping with wounds inflicted by thousands of demons and traitor marines. Yet despite this, he carried with him a determination that few beings in the galaxy could match. Sanguinius was known not only for his physical speed and strength, which were already unparalleled among Primarchs, but also for his remarkable psychic foresight. He saw flashes of possible futures, moments of doom and possibility, which guided his actions. But those visions were both a blessing and a curse. Long before he stepped aboard the Vengeful Spirit, Sanguinius already knew the likely outcome of the confrontation. He had foreseen his own death countless times, but he still chose to face Horus because he understood the symbolic and strategic importance of standing against the Warmaster. Even in his weakened state, Sanguinius was still a monster in combat, capable of tearing through demons like fire through dry grass. His mere presence inspired those around him, and his willpower was unmatched. But exhaustion is the greatest enemy of even the strongest warriors, and Sanguinius had spent every drop of strength reaching that throne chamber. By the time he reached Horus, he wasn't the fully powered angel that the Imperium knew. He was wounded, drained, but unwavering. This is the key context to understand: Sanguinius did not face Horus at his peak. He faced him at his absolute lowest. And that simple truth shaped everything that followed. To understand the scale of Sanguinius' challenge, we must examine the opponent before him. Horus Lupercal, once the Emperor's favored son, had become an entirely different being by the end of the heresy. The Warmaster was no longer just a Primarch, he was a vessel for the combined power of the Chaos Gods. Each of the four gods had poured a piece of their essence into him, transforming Horus into something beyond mortal, beyond even Primarch. His body pulsed with warp energy, his strength rivaling the destructive force of Titans, and his psychic aura capable of shredding the minds of entire armies. This was not the same Horus who once sparred with Sanguinius as a brother. This was a creature enhanced far beyond anything the Imperium's greatest warriors could realistically match. During the heresy, Horus' power was shown repeatedly in horrifying displays. He could shatter tanks with a gesture, crush armored warriors without lifting a finger, and twist reality around him like molten wax. His armor was blessed by the gods, his will was backed by their bottomless hatred for the Imperium. The Chaos Gods didn't just empower Horus, they elevated him to be their champion, their chosen instrument of destruction. Every strike he made carried the weight of the warp behind it, and every defense he raised was reinforced by unholy energy that defied the natural laws of the universe. It's important to understand this difference in scale. Horus wasn't fighting as a Primarch. He was fighting as a near god. His strength was unfair, his power overwhelming, and his presence alone was enough to suffocate lesser beings. When Sanguinius walked into that chamber, he wasn't facing a brother consumed by rage, he was facing the combined malice of chaos incarnate. And that alone made victory nearly impossible. The duel between Sanguinius and Horus is one of the most iconic and mysterious moments in Warhammer lore. Across various sources, accounts differ, but the essence remains powerful and tragic. The scene begins with Sanguinius forcing his way into the Warmaster's chamber aboard the Vengeful Spirit. The air crackles with warp energy. Horus waits, sitting upon a throne made of twisted metal and flesh, the corruption of chaos crawling across every surface. Sanguinius enters, battered but unbroken, wings dragged behind him like torn banners. Horus rises, towering with unnatural power radiating from every inch of his corrupted armor. In one version of the lore, Sanguinius manages to strike first, damaging Horus' armor and proving that even weakened, he was still capable of harming the chaos-infused Warmaster. But the effort costs him dearly, and Horus responds with overwhelming force, crushing the angel with brutal, unstoppable strength. Another version describes an extended duel, a desperate, furious struggle where Sanguinius uses every ounce of speed, foresight, and willpower to hold off the monstrous Horus. In this telling, the angel fights with pure desperation, landing blow after blow but never enough to turn the tide. Eventually, Horus' strength simply proves too great. The most tragic version claims Sanguinius never even got to fight properly, that Horus ended his life instantly with a blast of psychic power, too powerful to resist. But regardless of which version one accepts, the conclusion is the same: Sanguinius dies fighting with absolute courage. He knows he cannot win. He knows he is outmatched in every possible way. Yet he still charges, claws and blade flashing, wings spread in defiance. His final moments are not about victory, they are about showing the galaxy what true heroism looks like, even against impossible odds. Now we reach the central question: could Sanguinius have defeated Horus under different circumstances? To explore this, we must consider three key scenarios that fans and lore experts often discuss. The first is the possibility of Sanguinius confronting Horus while completely fresh, uninjured, fully energized, and at the height of his power. In this state, Sanguinius was incredibly fast, capable of moving with blinding speed and using his psychic foresight to predict his opponent's moves before they happened. Many believe that a fully rested Sanguinius could have fought Horus on equal terms, perhaps even overpowering him with his agility and skill. The fight would still have been brutal, but not hopeless. The second scenario considers Horus without his full chaos empowerment. Before corruption, Horus and Sanguinius were widely viewed as near equals, with Horus perhaps only slightly stronger. Without the unnatural warp amplification, Horus would lose his godlike strength, reality-bending abilities, and overwhelming psychic dominance. In this version, Sanguinius could have had an even chance, maybe more, depending on the battlefield and situation. This scenario gives the angel a realistic path to victory. The third scenario is the one that actually happened: Sanguinius weakened, exhausted, and bleeding, facing a chaos-infused Horus at his absolute maximum. This is the version where defeat was inevitable. No Primarch, not even the Emperor's most beloved son, could have overcome the combined power of all four Chaos Gods. It wasn't a duel, it was an execution waiting to happen. The tragedy lies not in Sanguinius losing, but in the fact that he still chose to stand and fight. Even when victory was impossible, he believed his death could make a difference. And, as history shows, he was right. Sanguinius' death wasn't just a moment of personal tragedy, it was a turning point for the entire galaxy. His final stand served multiple purposes, both practical and symbolic, that shaped the future of the Imperium. First, his sacrifice forced Horus to expend time, energy, and attention. Even if Sanguinius couldn't defeat the Warmaster, he slowed him down. In a battle of gods and Primarchs, every second matters. This momentary distraction created an opening for the Emperor to reach Horus' chamber, preventing the Warmaster from fully solidifying his control over Terra. Second, Sanguinius' death emotionally weakened Horus. Whether through guilt, hesitation, or a sudden clarity brought on by killing someone he once loved like a brother, there is a moment in the lore where Horus falters. This hesitation is what allows the Emperor to strike. Without Sanguinius confronting him first, Horus might have been fully prepared to face the Emperor, potentially changing the final outcome entirely. Third, Sanguinius' sacrifice became a symbol for the Imperium. His death wasn't forgotten, it became a legend. For 10,000 years, the Imperium has remembered the Angel as the embodiment of noble sacrifice, purity, and selflessness. His martyrdom strengthened the spiritual core of the Imperium at a time when everything seemed lost. The Blood Angels, his sons, used his sacrifice as the foundation of their identity, transforming their grief into unbreakable loyalty. Finally, Sanguinius' death gave the Emperor the emotional fire to unleash his full power against Horus. The Emperor didn't want to kill Horus, he wanted to save him. But seeing Sanguinius dead filled him with righteous fury. Only then did he unleash the psychic force necessary to end the Warmaster. Without the Angel's death, the Emperor might have hesitated, and humanity may have fallen. Now we step into the realm of possibility, the greatest, what if, in all of Warhammer 40k. What would have happened if Sanguinius had somehow defeated Horus aboard the Vengeful Spirit? The consequences would have been monumental. First and foremost, the Emperor would not have been forced into the desperate battle that ultimately crippled him. If Sanguinius killed Horus or even weakened him enough for the Emperor to finish the job without taking fatal damage, the Golden Throne might never have been needed. The Emperor could have survived, guiding humanity into a true Golden Age rather than becoming a barely living corpse trapped in a machine for millennia. The Imperium itself would look entirely different. Without the Emperor's near-death state, the bureaucratic nightmare of the High Lords, the Inquisition, and the Ecclesiarchy might never have become so dominant. The Blood Angels, as the sons of the hero who saved the Emperor, may have risen to become the most honored legion in the Imperium. Sanguinius could have been appointed Warmaster, guiding the Imperium with wisdom, compassion, and unmatched charisma. The reformation of the Imperium would have been swift and orderly, rather than the chaotic struggle it became. Even the galaxy-wide balance of power would be altered. Chaos would suffer an enormous setback, losing not only Horus but their greatest champion. The traitor legions might have fractured sooner, perhaps even been defeated entirely before retreating to the Eye of Terror. Humanity could have reclaimed lost worlds, rebuilt its armies, and prevented many of the horrors that plagued the galaxy in the 41st millennium. But this alternate future never came to pass. The tragedy of Warhammer 40k is that victory is rarely clean, and hope is always fragile. Sanguinius didn't win, but his sacrifice laid the foundation for humanity's survival. And in the grim darkness of the far future, that sacrifice remains one of the Imperium's brightest lights. In the end, the question of whether Sanguinius could have defeated Horus is more than just a debate about power levels or lore interpretation, it's a window into the very heart of Warhammer 40k. Sanguinius stood before a monster forged by the combined hatred of the Chaos Gods, exhausted, bleeding, and painfully aware of his fate. Yet he didn't hesitate. He didn't retreat. He faced Horus with the same unwavering courage that had defined his entire life. And although he fell, his sacrifice echoed across the galaxy in ways far greater than any single victory could. The truth is simple but powerful: under different circumstances, perhaps the Angel could have won. A fully rested Sanguinius, or a Horus without warp blessing, may have led to a duel where the outcome was uncertain. But in the reality of the heresy, the path was already carved. Sanguinius was never meant to be the warrior who delivered the killing blow, he was meant to be the spark that allowed the Emperor to end the Warmaster's madness. His death was the emotional trigger, the strategic pause, and the symbol of purity that turned the tide of humanity's greatest war. And that is why his loss remains so poignant. Sanguinius didn't just die fighting Horus, he died protecting hope. He died so that humanity could have a future, no matter how dark or difficult that future would become. His final stand became the story that has inspired the Imperium for 10,000 years, a reminder that even in the face of absolute despair, a single act of courage can reshape the course of history. So while the angel may not have defeated the Warmaster in life, his sacrifice ensured that Horus could be defeated at all. And in the grim darkness of the far future, that is its own kind of victory.